Yesterday I saw Veda Austin talk at a place called Warkworth, which is about an hour north of Auckland, at the Warkworth Town Hall. If you don't know who Veda Austin is, I'd recommend you go check out her work. Vedaustin. She's basically taken the work of Imaru Imoto and taken that work to a whole nother level. And her understanding of what water is, she's still on her own personal discovery with water, but where her journey with water is taking her is extraordinary. And you begin to understand the nature of consciousness embodied within water when you look at her work and you hear her talk around the nature of her discoveries, what water is bringing into her life through her work. And I find it really interesting as well. I don't feel as though what I'm experiencing is a projection of what I'm actually discovering and learning myself from my own research, but I'm actually also, I feel as though what I'm learning, when I see people talk and they talk about the nature of cycles themselves, and I hear information that relates to cycles, and I hear information that relates to the end of cycles and the beginning of new ones, I can't help but feel as though Bebu Dev Misra is correct with in regards to his interpretation of the Vedic sciences and the math that he has done to interpret those Vedic sciences, and how his information is so prescient in this day and age about the nature of the end of the ascending Kali Yuga cycle, which is in March the 21st, 22nd, 2025. And how we head into the age of a transition age of 1200 years as we purify this this heavy, dense energy from the Kali Yuga cycle, and as we transcend and move out of it and alchemize that energy. And how there are people, souls incarnating onto our planet at this time, into our reality at this time, to come in to assist this transition and to bring in to anchor in the new energy, right? And Bibu Dev Misra is quite clear. If you watch his videos, he talks about the nature of bringing the energy of the Dvarpara cycle, an age of virtue, an age of honor, an age of integrity, an age of dignity, into this cycle now by bringing it into your own life and acting that way in everything you do, every aspect of your life as much as possible, acting with compassion, with kindness, with virtue, with honor, in a world that's got everything that's void of all those aspects and all those attributes. If you look at our legal system, it is bereft of virtue, bereft of honor, it's bereft of anything compassionate. It's about gain, personal self, it's about personal self-indulgence, gain, and it's really about control is the one word. If I would say what's the nature of the Kali Yuga cycle is all about control, ascending and descending. It's about control by a few over the many, and the only way the many can ever be controlled is if they acquiesce to the few. And that's what's happened for thousands of years. The many have acquiesced to the few. And this is going to stop at some point. You know, at some point, the energies, as Bibu Dev Misra says as well, the energies of these people that are moving through these people, through this parasite class, can no longer and will no longer function as we move into this age of transition, the Greeks call, in the ages of man, ekipyrosis, which is an age of a transition through fire, a purification through fire. And there's a race to get everything done by 2030 in regards to, I've done many videos on this, there's a race to get everything done in regards to their control system in place by 2030. By 2030. So they can harvest, in my perception, they can harvest consciousness and take it into the 8th sphere, which is a mystery school, virtual reality, hell world, so close to our own, but in a more energetic, but also another frequency. We live in a world and we exist in a world where our ability to perceive a frequency band which is so tiny, so small, it's smaller than a pinhead on a pin. It's tiny. It's maybe, Christ, it might be an increment on top of a pinhead, right, of a pin. That's how much we can perceive in regards to reality all around us. And there is, in my perception, and these people who are in the mystery schools, Steiner's workers with anthroposophy, has made this quite clear, that the eighth sphere is a place where consciousness is harvested and taken into. My perception in regards to the consciousness being harvested from this frequency band and taken into the eighth sphere, and they only have 5 more years to harvest as much consciousness as they possibly can and take it across into the eighth sphere. And they will do everything in their way, in their power, possibly, to get that consciousness harvested from the avatars that consciousness is in and take it across into the eighth sphere before 2032 or 2030, really. But 2032, when we have our first potential meteor or asteroid bolide strike as we pass through the Taurodian asteroid field. And a massive asteroid, potentially comet, smacks into us and destroys our civilization. Look, this is a potential. And so many astronomers, including Graham Hancock's work, who I'm not a fan of, but Graham Hancock has also said the same thing as well. We are heading into this asteroid field. By 2032, 2036, we have two instances where we will pass through the larger areas, or we'll pass through the space, our orbit will pass through the space, where the largest asteroids, bolides, meteorites will be. And when that happens, there's a good chance something very massive, very big is going to smack into us. And if it does happen, if they're not deflected or they're not pushed away or they're not destroyed, it will be Armageddon. It will be a new beginning, because we're going to get smacked. And if something 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers smacks into the earth, it's the end of civilization as we know it. And this is the age of echipyrosis. Bibhudev Misra believes in the next 15 years has been the essence. If you read his work and you hear him talk, he says in the next 15 years, this is the essence of when the time of the initial and the sudden burst, the biggest burst that will bring down this civilization as we know it. By 2040, we'll be living in a very agrarian society. We'll have a small pockets of survivors after this cataclysmic events that will take place between now, 2025, and 2040. And there'll be a small group of people that will survive this cataclysmic event. And my perception is there will be a massive harvest of consciousness taken from this frequency into the eighth sphere before 2030. It's my perception, no one else's. I haven't heard anyone else say this. This is just what I feel. And I could be wrong. I'm only perceiving what the information is showing me, what the data is showing me, what I'm seeing in regards to the progression and the full steam ahead work of the American government, Chinese and other countries, which is the cult has no borders, as David Icke says, across the world, are bringing in AI in every way to govern, in every way to move through our society in order for the AI to have a functioning process where it eventually will create a hive mind to those people that have had this medical procedure in 2021, 2022, that survive the medical procedure. Because that medical procedure is, believe it or not, and my research is quite clear with this, people like Dr. Jack Kruse make it quite clear as well, there are certain elements in that medical procedure that are deadly, and when they are activated through exposure to EMF radiation, it turns into turbocancers, and that turbocancer, well, after the death of the body, the biological computer, the avatar, my perception is that consciousness is harvested and taken across into the eighth sphere. That's just my perception. This is my perception. And this is a multidimensional play at work here. I also believe and feel as though, I feel as though there is a play here at work as well, where they are attempting to attune the avatars of people who have had this medical procedure to allow them to be possessed by lower astral entities into this dimension in order to stop this cycle happening, this transition cycle happening, by bringing in lower astral entities into this dimension by 2030 in order to somehow belay what's coming. But you're not going to be able to stop it. There's no way. And I think this has happened before. This is cyclical. This has happened before. At the last time we're in the situation where we're ascending out of the Kali Yuga cycle, which would have been thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, when we were ascending out of the last Kali Yuga cycle. My feeling is the same thing happened again. This is just another repeat of the game being played. Now, what I learned yesterday, the Veda Austin talk, which talked about the nature of some children that are born autistic, that are born and who are autistic, whether they are autistic through a medical procedure, creating a situation where their bodies become autistic, or whether it's they are autistic, born into their bodies this way, or they're just diagnosed as being autistic, is up for grabs. But these children she's been working with around the world have a name for themselves. I can't remember the name right now. It's something like autistics. There's a name for them, they call themselves anyway. But these autistic children, apparently, according to Veda and the people that are studying these children in the United States, especially in the United States, can read their parents' minds and can also talk to their parents in telepathy, and are utilizing water to project what they want to say into the water. And then by doing this, by looking at water and projecting what they want to say into the water, and then the water being frozen by Veda Austin, other people doing the same work around the world as well, the messages in the water, the language in the water, the words they want to say are projected into that water. And when they project the words into the water, often the language looks like cuneiform text. And though these children are communicating with their parents and communicating with the people doing this research in regards to looking at what's being said in the water, what the messages are being conveyed in the water, projected into the water by these children. And I'm going to read to you a couple of things here, a couple of messages from a couple of children, a couple of these autistic children that have a telepathic ability to talk to their parents, but also a telepathic ability to talk to each other in regards to their autistic nature. They don't speak, these children, because they're autistic. And it's also a label for me. But they don't speak. But they have abilities that are dormant in most people at this time. But, in my perception, as Bebe Dev Misra has also said as well, I follow on his I wouldn't say coattails, but on his message, is that there will be, in this age, people coming into this age, children being born in this age, who are getting us ready for the Dwarpara cycle. Because this will be, in the Dvarpara cycle, in my perception, and in Bebe Dev Misra's perception as well, a skill that we'll all have. Because after all, in the Greek ages of man, the Dvarpara cycle, the Bronze Age, is an age of heroes. So let me read to you two messages from these autistic children. The first one's from a child called Sammy. And this is what Veda gave us yesterday in regards to the very end of her talk. This is what she, there's two slides. I'm going to read this first slide here and read you what these children said. The general message of the images is about foundational structure to build co-create the new. This is about the nature of water and looking at water and what water is. I'll read that again. The general message of the images is about foundational structure or build or co-create the new. to build or co-create the new. The images are like music, actually. Sheet music to inform everything that is matter on the planet, that a cosmic cycle has closed and a new epoch is beginning. The end of the Kali Yuga cycle, the age of transition, EPOCH, as Dev Misra said, according to the Vedic sciences. Remember, the Vedic sciences are probably the most clear, concise, and most deepest and most clearest historical documents we have in the world today. I think the way the lines are is like foundational structure at the pre-manifestation levels. That's what Sammy said. And this is what Daniel says. The writing in the water represents doorways. It is a form of light language. The water holds the light when one gazes upon them. The fluid codes get downloaded into the person's consciousness and body. They are doorways into another realm of consciousness. Each code is a doorway. Each little line is a doorway. It represents God consciousness experiencing itself as multiple doorways, as God consciousness expresses itself through multiple humans. Veda is uncovering something that has not been seen before. She's unveiling consciousness that is ready to be seen, but a direct translation is difficult because it is not writing as we know it. It is multidimensional. It is all multidimensional form. So both those children, Daniel and Sammy, are both of you saying that what we are having coming in now is at the end of this Kali Yuga cycle and the beginning of the Dvarpara cycle, beginning of the age of transition before we head into the Dvarpara cycle, is that these new codes are coming in through the water. These new codes are coming in through the water, and the water is holding that light, that vibration, and it's bringing it in at the end of this ascending Kali Yuga cycle. And what that means for a lot of people, a lot of men and women, children who have not taken this medical procedure, in my perception, is that if they choose to, they can attune to this energy. By being more virtuous, by being more honorable, by being more compassionate, by doing their work and facing their shadows, by holding that light, that energy, by attuning to it. I can't speak for those people who have had this medical procedure that was in 2021, 2022. I can't speak for any of them because I just don't know what's happening there. I know that there was a time when Bill Gates, back in the early 2000s, was creating a technology that could turn off a gene that was enabled people to connect to consciousness, to God. Whether that has happened to people who actually have had this medical procedure is up for debate. There have been people that I wrote about in my blog that said, I've taken this experimental gene therapy and now I feel like I can't connect to God anymore. Whether that means people out of the life stream of the planetary consciousness, the organic life stream, by taking this medical procedure is also up for debate. I don't know. I would look at the work of someone like Gigi Young to get any kind of underpinning whether that would be the case or not. But my feeling is there is a Luciana harvest going on because these people, the parasite class, know exactly what time it is. The cycle's all coming to an end, and the convergence of all these cycles. But the biggest cycle of all, in my perception, is the one that's coming, the EPOCH, the age of transition of 1200 years, as we burn this heavy, dense energy, and we alchemize it into light. And these children, these autistic children, are telling us through the messages, through the water, that the codes are coming in through the water, right? And there's a question, and then it becomes up to us whether we choose to adhere to those codes, or we choose to understand this information and do our research and get attuned to the life stream if we choose to move forward within this age of transition, EPOCH, purification through fire, moving into what will be 15 years of fucking absolute chaos. Because that's what this parasite class wants, but that's also what's going to be happening. Are you going to ride the storm, or are you going to be swept away in it? That's the question that I ask. Are you going to attune to the cosmic cycles, or are you going to be caught up in the misdirection and distraction, or have you taken a medical procedure that could potentially take you out of that cosmic cycle altogether and harvest your consciousness and take it across into this technological hell world, the eighth sphere, that Rudolf Steiner and the mystery schools talk about. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Matewa. I'll see you again soon.